Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal. Each week, we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices in a very casual and informal way. This is not a webinar or lecture. Rather, our goal is to talk about key topics and challenges in a very informal way and share best practices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, and I'm the principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. My guest in this episode is Devon Campbell. He advises innovative small startup companies in the medical device space to achieve product success. Starting from product development through quality and regulatory strategies, regulatory approval, and eventually commercial launch. He helps them with the entire process. In this conversation, we are talking about what it takes to succeed in this fast-paced, innovative environment where there's a lot of ambiguity and very few resources. We had this conversation in front of a live audience as part of our weekly LinkedIn live audio series. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome everyone to our weekly Let's Talk Risk conversation. I'm so excited to be with you once again. With that, Devon, I'm so excited to welcome you. Thanks for joining me today. I know we're going to talk about product success in a startup environment, and it's a big topic. But I'm so excited to hear your views and your experience about what it takes. But first, before we get into the topic, could you start by just sharing your journey with our audience? Just introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so, and super stoked to be on this call. I've been listening in for a while, and I see a lot of faces there in the audience that I recognize, so I'm happy to have a chance to join the conversation, and I hope it's in a meaningful way today. So my background, I'm a mechanical engineer by training and by practice. Bachelor's and master's are both in mechanical engineering. I've been designing medical devices since the 90s. I've been fortunate enough to have been a part of some really cool organizations bringing some really great diagnostic devices to market. And that has led to, good success within the companies, lots of patents, lots of good commercial success. I've had 3 exits. But more importantly, I've had the opportunity in kind of doing what we do in our field to touch the lives of millions and millions of patients. And that really keeps me here. After my second of 3 exits, I took a little bit of time for myself and just spent some time not working for any one particular company or doing any one particular thing. And as I chose to take a kind of a year off, my time started getting filled up talking to small startups that investor friends of mine might have been investing in or asked me to take a look at, going to accelerator events, just kind of giving of myself and of my background freely. And I had a lot of fun with it. And it just kept snowballing into more and more introductions, more and more startups that I started talking to. And after about a year or so of it, I realized I was, working 40, 50 hours a week, not getting paid anything because money wasn't the issue. It was really making an impact that was an issue. And I was just having so much fun. I had the biggest smile on my face. I was just so filled with joy. And I decided, well, maybe I'll just do this from here on out. And so I started a company. We do advisory services for earlier stage entrepreneurs and startups, especially those that have never done something like as big and scary as bringing a medical device to market. And me and my team help these earlier stage companies build their infrastructure, think about their strategy. And we've been doing it for almost 6 years now. And it's been the most fun I've done.
That's awesome.
In a really long time.
So it's interesting to hear you say you're having fun. And I can understand there's so much energy, so much excitement in sort of a startup environment. Can you just give us a sense of how does it feel to be there as an engineer, as an advisor? And you have such a big view, such a big experience. How does it feel like to work in that atmosphere?
I think it's kind of, and we're meant to have a very honest and open conversation on these calls. It is on one side of the coin invigorating, right? There's lots of passion. There's lots of energy. There's amazing things that we're doing, and there's tons of promise. On the other side of the coin, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of, I don't quite know what I'm doing, especially for founders and first-time founders. And there's a lot of humility that you have to be able to bring to the table and just kind of stay in touch with your feelings and recognize, like, what we do is hard and it can be scary, but it can also be invigorating and passionate and fun, and it can be both at the same time.
Yeah, I totally understand that point. And I think that even in large organizations, there is now so much focus on rapid innovation. Technology is changing fast. Market is competitive. We have to innovate fast. So I think a lot of colleagues on the call today who might be in large organizations or mid-sized organizations probably share that sentiment as well, that they're under a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety. I mean, take artificial intelligence, for example. We may not know enough about it, but now we have to build a device. How do we even get started, right? So I think this could be probably more of a universal sort of feeling of both excitement and anxiety that you're highlighting, which is very true to me. So Devon, I wanted to talk about a little bit in terms of what it takes to be successful. Now, every situation is different, right? Every situation is different. But as an advisor, when you go in, do you notice a couple of things that you think will be that organization's strength you can leverage versus some of the opportunities that you can help them bridge the gaps? How do you actually even start by thinking about your approach to helping them succeed?
I think one of the more important things for a lot of the teams that I work with, and that a bunch of us on the call, I see some of our team there that we get to work with, it comes back to, and I mentioned this word earlier, like this sense of humility. So in an early stage startup, you might be 2 or 3 people big, and that's it. And in a scrappy startup situation where you don't have any money, you're maybe just barely getting by on the fumes of a small STTR grant or something like that, right? You don't have a lot of runway. You can't go and hire lots of resources and bring lots of people in to do all this work, which, I used to be able to do when I, worked at very, very large companies. But it doesn't mean that you should do everything yourself, even though you feel like you're compelled and you maybe have to, right? So being able to go into it and saying, like, okay, I acknowledge we don't have the big enough team that we have that we would need to get this done, but I might not be the best person to think about how to do risk management, how to do product development. I might not be the best person to think through regulatory strategy or whatever, even though I can Google it or chat GTP it or whatever. That's only going to get you so far. And at some point, you really need experienced people to be able to help guide and mentor and coach you. And the teams that I see be really successful are the ones that recognize where their gaps lie and then strive to reach out. It doesn't mean you have to fill it with a full-time person, but you could just bring a mentor in. You could bring an advisor in, and you just go out to lunch with her, once every couple of weeks or once a month, and just pick their brain and help them set you on the right path. That's better than doing it yourself and doing it wrong or not doing it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll once again draw the parallel between this environment and a large organization where you are working in a small team, working on a product which is supposed to launch very quickly, very innovative. You have resources within your company that you can leverage and reach out to them. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's more important to understand carefully and sort of as objectively as you can where your gaps are, and then try to reach out to the right resources, whether internally or externally, to try to bridge those gaps. It applies in both directions. So that's one way, we talk about risk here, right? That's one connection to overall risk of success. We want to launch the product. We want to get it fully tested and have all kind of clinical trials if we need to. And we want to get it through the regulatory approval process. And we want to be in the market. Those drivers are still the same, are they not, Devon?
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, can you share like one quick experience, if you could, that really made you feel like, wow, we did it? And what were some of the things that you really focused on in that experience that, we can sort of learn from? What happened there? If you could just tell us a short story.
Sure. I can go back and think through. I mean, obviously an exit is a great we did it opportunity, but that is, that is not a universal experience for a lot of people. So,
and even just to make sure, many of our colleagues may not fully understand that. What do you mean by an exit?
Sure. So taking a company and kind of building it up to a point where you either have the opportunity to take it public, or you have the company acquired. So those are exit opportunities. It's kind of more in the minds or in the eyes of the investors that have invested in that company. They then get to exit from being involved in the company because they had an opportunity to make their money.
Got you. So yeah, I would love to hear a story from you that you are particularly very proud of an exit, and maybe share a couple of things that went really well for you in that experience.
We can use the most recent one then, for example, and that was an exit, a private acquisition 2 summers ago. And when I first got involved with that company, the leadership, the thing that really attracted me to them was the fact that there was 2 founders. They were both very, very smart guys, knowing what they were doing with the science that they were trying to bring it in. They had an amazing advisor who helped them find the right problem to solve with the solution that they had come up with. And then they started building their company out to do it. They're passionate individuals, first time in this space, first time as CEO and CTO. And they were able to get, some fundraising and develop their, some decent money and develop their first gen instrument and kind of bring it to market. And that is the time that they brought, the CEO realized that he is not the appropriate person to bring the company to the next level. And so he stepped over into a COO role, and they used some of their fundraising to hire a new CEO and to hire me to come in and help guide them through product development processes and build out quality systems and implement risk management and things like that. So it's an example of the team being humble, knowing where their gaps lie, and then bringing in really good resources to help build it. And, together we ended up taking their Gen 1 system and overhauling it, making it better, and listening to customer feedback and listening to, issues in the field and revising it and coming up with a Gen 2. And after having done that, the success of that Gen 2 really led to the ability for that company to be acquired in a private acquisition. And, everyone, feels really great about it.
Everyone was happy. Awesome. So if I were to just capture a couple of key insights here, is it's very important, very, very important for founders to understand where the gaps in their abilities are and what it will take to go to the next level. The humility that you mentioned is so important, and I think it should apply in any environment. Let's say you are the R&D leader in a large organization managing a portfolio of projects, and you have a team, kind of somewhere that is going to struggle to get to the next stage. It's our role to figure out what they will need. And that's what I'm hearing from you, is staying open-minded and staying committed to the mission and not just getting sucked into just for the sake of doing it. So, Devon, I think this is a perfect opportunity now for us to start inviting our colleagues for maybe a conversation here, guys. So whatever on your mind about your particular situation or this topic in general, how do we help achieve success in a fast-paced, challenging environment, which may be in a startup or in a large organization as well? So, Steve, you are on. I will ask you to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And Naveen, tell me, how's the sound quality?
Perfect, Steve. We can hear you loud and clear.
Great. That's fantastic. So nice to speak with you. And Devon, it's nice to meet you virtually. I consult and I focus on regulatory experiences for medtech companies, both large established companies and startups. And I tend to be primarily focused in the post-market space. I'm just curious what your view is of one hypothesis that I have, which is that for these startup firms, there's a lot of attention and sensitivity to pre-market regulatory events, the things that are necessary to get regulatory approval. There is less sensitivity to or capability associated with post-market events. So, for example, a company manages to get regulatory approval to bring a device to market. Now the company is actually manufacturing and distributing the product, and there is some type of event that is atypical. A problem with the product, or a regulator comes to do a quality inspection, and that inspection surfaces problems. And the hypothesis is that startup companies in particular don't really have bandwidth or experience to deal well with those kind of events. But you're in the space, and I'm really curious whether or not that view lands.
I'm so happy you brought that up, because it's a great lead in for one of the other topics I wanted to touch on. And that is the concept of starting with the end in mind. So for an early stage startup, especially those that are completely cash strapped, they have to be really careful about where we invest time and effort and money. And so when you're building out your quality systems, it's obvious that they're going to focus, and their product development processes, it's obvious that they're going to focus more on the here and now. A lot of times companies don't even believe that they will exist long enough to have to go commercial, right? If you can get to the point where you have FDA approval, and say it's a 510K or something easier like that, then the likelihood of them getting acquired or having an exit, like we talked about earlier, is dramatically increased. The opportunity for that is increased, because that's a huge value inflection. It's a risk reduction moment for investors to see a technology there. So a lot of times companies won't even invest any effort into post-market processes or thinking or anything. My advice generally to the teams is to build out your processes and your systems just in time. You need to build what you need in that moment, and try not to build any more. So you don't necessarily have to have any of the post-commercialization, processes or products or work instructions or anything like that in mind. However, it is a good value creator for the company if you are starting with that end in mind, and you're saying, we know we're eventually going to have these pieces in place, and that you build toward them rather than just ignoring it altogether and building out your product and building out your development and your verification, validation, testing. You should always be thinking and putting into place just enough that you build out the infrastructure, maybe implementing new quality modules, think of it that way, they're aligned with 1345 or whatever, a couple months before you need them. So you have a little bit of practice using them, and then they can come into play. Mm-hmm. So as long as you start with the end in mind, that's valuable.
But Ben, let me ask, so that's a great response. Truly. I just want to ask a quick follow-on.
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
With apologies for monopolizing Devon's time. It's simply this. I have heard from colleagues who have had time at large medtech firms that acquire companies that they don't want to simply see a company that has received 510K, for example. They want to see companies that have successfully manufactured and marketed a device before making a decision to acquire that company, because they want to see that the device is marketable. Mm-hmm. And so, Devon, I'm really curious whether that point lands with you, or whether you think that it's enough simply to focus on getting that initial clearance or approval.
So I reject that idea as a blanket statement. I am paid to go in and do diligence work for strategics and for, especially for larger VCs. And we are not necessarily always looking for market traction and success. If it is a brand new product that has never been been out there, if it's a de novo situation, then that what you described is more likely to be the case, because a company's going to be a little bit nervous and let the small company deal with absorbing the risk, and if they're able to be successful, then swoop in and buy it. Unless the promise is so big that a strategic or will want to go in and sweep them up before they get too expensive, right? So it's a risk benefit analysis on the strategic's acquisition side. But if it's a 510K situation, if it's you have a much cheaper, much better way of doing something that, was going to be able to take some of the market share away from some of the other devices or products that are out there, then those are absolutely situations where you may not ever even bring your own product to market, because it'll get acquired, and then let them, Abbott or someone else that's buying you, who has all the infrastructure, just let them deal with it.
So what I'm hearing you say, this is, first of all, excellent conversation, Steve. Thanks for bringing it up. To me, it seems like you want to make yourself as attractive as possible to potential buyers, and their needs might be different, their expectations might be different, and you have to be also very strategic about how much work you will do up front to make yourself attractive. And part of it, like you said, Devon, could be a simple calculation. Hey, it's very easy. We are in now, let's move on. Or, hey, we want to wait a little bit more and generate more data. In fact, we'll become more attractive if we have market data and stability in our post-market, right? So it's more of a strategic conversation to me. Thank you for that. Ed, thanks for waiting patiently. I want to invite you now to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind. Ed, can you hear me? Okay, I'll give Ed a moment to join us in a bit. Bijan,
there we are. Now I'm unmuted.
Okay, Ed, go ahead, please. Go ahead and share what you have in mind.
This is a pretty interesting discussion. I actually work with Devon and Christy Johnson, who's also on the call here, in this space. And what I wanted to point out is back in the 1996 version of the FDA quality system regulation, they identified, I think it was around 10,000 companies that were affected by that quality system regulation. But the interesting number was that the majority of the companies had 35 employees or less. So they're talking about the small space that Devon's working in, and Steve as well. That the large companies, actually, there were, I think it was 100 companies that had more than 250 employees in this medical device space. So there's a lot going on out here where Devon and Steve and Christy were all working. And I think it's something that needs to be paid closer attention to. The number of establishments that are currently registered with the FDA now is 28,303, according to the QMSR that was published on February 2nd. So there's a lot more companies now, but they didn't publish any figures about who was small, what the size of the companies was in there. But I would assume that we grew the number of small companies just like we did the number of large companies as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's opportunities out there. And while I'm here, Naveen, if you'll permit me.
Sure, go ahead, Ed.
I want to do a little publicity for something that Christy and I, and also another person that's frequently on this call, Jayed Moon, we published an article yesterday entitled The New FDA QMSR Through the Lens of Risk Management Requirements and Analysis, which appeared in Med Device Online and also on Drug Device Leader, or Drug Delivery Leader, excuse me. And so we're talking about what's coming up, and it has information that came from the FDA's presentation last week at Amy's Nexus conference. So
excellent. Ed, if you could share that link with me, I'll post it as part of the this event here so people can access it. But thank you for sharing that with us. But guys, this is the beauty of our forum, right? We learn from each other, and Ed has brought such important information for us to share. So definitely, Ed, please share that link, and I will pass that on. Thank you so much.
I'll get it to you.
Thank you. Bijan, thank you for waiting patiently. You are next.
Hi, Naveen. Hello, Dylan. Good to hear your talk. You made a very good point for small startups that they should implement their procedures and processes in a strategic way because of all the business risks that they face. So safety risk management is one of those processes. In your opinion, when is the most optimal point in their product development process to implement a safety risk management process?
As early as possible. I mean, it's
Bijan, you might have to mute your mic. Go ahead, Devon.
Sure. So, I mean, if you wait and you're trying to time it and we're looking for exactly the right spot to start to bring that in, you're going to miss the boat. You're always going to do it too late. So, especially when it comes to like safety risk management, I'm always advising everything that I gave a talk just yesterday to a bunch of folks at in the M2D2 Impact Accelerator program. And I spoke for an hour and a half, and one of the biggest themes was, bringing patient safety and patient efficacy to the very forefront of everything you're doing right from the very start. So maybe it's a cop-out answer, but I would say there is no optimal point. Like you do this work and then you start thinking about that. It really should be right from the very core and right from the very start.
And I think what I would add to that, Devon, is that it can be done also in a strategic way. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything right front, but bring the attitude, bring the mindset, and have a plan, a stepwise plan on how you're going to progress in your safety risk management process. So, Bijan, thank you for bringing that up. I know we are running short on time, and Roger, you have been waiting patiently, so I'm going to give you the floor. Please go ahead and share what you have in mind. And I know you work in a small to mid-sized company environment, so I think you might have something interesting to share here.
So I do work in a small company, but all of my career has been for medium to large size companies. And when I think of a small boutique design firm like Devon's running there, it almost seems like the dream world for a design-oriented person. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine that you personally, or you, the company, are seeing all the time a battle between the customer wanting to do a short-term bias on their decisions versus really investing the time to do some of these things that you've been talking about to really make sure you get the right product out there correctly. And I got to believe maybe sometimes you can win that battle because of your reputation or the reputation of the company. But can you just speak a little bit about how often that happens, how hard the battle is, maybe some techniques you've used to overcome that hurdle, that at least a hurdle that I imagine you have?
Yeah. And thanks for that question, Roger. And it is a bit of a dream world in so many ways. Like, I can't say though, like, you're right. It's incredibly fun doing as a designer and as an engineer in the medical device space, like getting to do what we do here at Product. I guess an easy way to answer the question is, a lot of times there's organizations that just come in and say, hey, we need this and we need it done in 3 months. And then we're going to submit to the FDA, and then we're going to go, and then we're going to get approval 1 month afterwards. And it's just an overflowing amount of delusional statements about like not really understanding how product development happens in the medical device space. And I just don't allow us to get into situations like that. You need to spend easily a good third, if not more, of your overall product development process time in planning. And so if we're not carefully thinking through how do we bring the product to market, you could go slow early to go fast later.
And that makes sense to me. So I guess one of the things I'm hearing is you as a company have You have the luxury to say no. Say no.
We do, yes. We
Excellent.
we don't really necessarily consider it a luxury. We consider it like a necessity. And it allows us to work with companies that have the humility to be able to take the time they need to really bring a world-class product to market. And that's what we like to be associated with. That's the impact that we want to be able to make.
Bijan, it looks like you were trying to share something, but I'm sorry, there was an echo on your end. Do you want to quickly unmute your mic and share what you have in mind?
No, I didn't.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bijan. There's an echo on your side. So, guys, like always, we are at the end of our 30 minutes. So I'm going to give Devon a couple of minutes just to collect his thoughts and, share with us maybe 2 or 3 key takeaway messages today. But in the meantime, I'm going to share with you some announcements, especially for those of you who are joining for the first time. We do this every Friday. So if you love these type of conversations, put it on your calendar at 11 a.m. Eastern. You will see an announcement for next week's session already posted on LinkedIn. So join us if your schedule allows. If not, you can find the recordings of our past conversations on the Let's Talk Risk website. And you will find the link to the website in the comment section of this event page. Join us there. You will be able to see those recordings, and when the recording for this session is complete, I will post it there as soon as possible. So with that, Devon, if you could just share a couple of key takeaway messages from our conversation today.
Yeah, I wrote down 5 quick things, but I'll try to lump them all together.
Sure.
I think one theme that we talked a lot about early is it's important for in the medical device world, but especially for the startups, is humility and being able to be very self-aware and understanding where you're good and where you're not, and bringing in coaches and mentors and support to help you where you're not. Starting very early, but starting with a plan in mind so that you know where you want to go in the end. That will ultimately help a startup continue to build value in their company, which is what they all want, because they eventually want to either bring a product to market and then command that market, or have an exit. And when you are starting early, even before you have processes in place and you have lots of different structures in place, moving forward with a sense of purpose and a sense of dedication to patient safety, and weaving risk-based thinking and risk-forward thinking into what you do as your design decisions very early in the research and development processes of new medical devices, in the end always wins out. Mm-hmm. So those are like the 3 big topics I want to make sure that we state.
That's so on point, Devon. And again, I will emphasize that these principles apply to large organizations as well, especially because we are under so much pressure to innovate fast. And I'm sure if you're working in large organizations, you can take away these messages and start to think about how you will influence and how you will shape the pace of innovation in your organization, and in return, advance your own career. So I see this as an enormous leadership opportunity for all of us. Guys, what a wonderful conversation once again. I hope you enjoyed it. Please show some emotion using emojis. Let me know how you are feeling and thinking about these conversations. You like them or not? I'm actually, you know what, guys, to be honest, there is no thumbs down emoji, which I love. I love it. So anyway, I
love seeing all these emojis showing up. This is great, Naveen.
Exactly. Well, so guys, this is why I love this. It gives me so much energy, and it's only because of you. It's only because of your participation and your engagement. So come back again and be a part of our community of risk practitioners that we are building here. I want to hear from you. Please reach out to me by messaging or email, any way you can find me. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Share your thoughts. And oh, by the way, if you would like to raise your hand and be part of this conversation as a guest, you're welcome. Without exception, I believe all of you have something to share, something worthwhile to share. And I don't care much about, if you say I have too little experience. No, I think you have enormous insights and perspective to share. So raise your hand if you want to talk to our panel here, or become part of our panel and be a part of this conversation. And if not, share your feedback with me privately, and that'll be fine as well. Devon, thank you so much for giving us your time and your generous sort of insights. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Ed, Bijan, Roger, and Steve for really contributing so positively to this conversation. Guys, with that, I wish you fun on this weekend, and we will connect once again next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.